Welcome to Save the Great South Bay speaker series. I'm Robin Silvestri, Executive Director at Save the Great South Bay. A little bit about our organization. Save the Great South Bay is a 501c3 nonprofit located here on the South Shore of Long Island. And our mission is to protect and preserve our beloved Great South Bay. We're a bunch of boaters, fishermen, scientists, community members, politicians, paddleboarders, kayakers, fishermen, you name it. We have them as members here. We're about 15,000 strong and growing every day. So our speaker series was started in 2019 to bring together the many stakeholders on issues related to the health of the Great South Bay. Today, we are very pleased to welcome Dr. Artie Kopelman, who will be speaking to us on the seals of Long Island. Welcome, Dr. Kopelman.
Thank you.
Dr. Kopelman is not only a member of the Save the Great South Bay's board, he is our education director, but he is also a distinguished service professor in the SUNY system and a professor emeritus at SUNY FIT. Dr. Kopelman is also an adjunct professor at the Stony Brook School of Marine and Atmospheric Sciences. So with that, Artie, I'd like to turn the floor over to you.
All right.
And we'll get started on your seal talk, Seals of the Great South Bay.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity to share this information with everyone. Talk for a while. I'll introduce you to a little bit about seals in general and about the seals of the bay and some of the work that I'm involved in. Most of my work is in Moriches Inlet or Moriches Bay, but seals that I see in Moriches Bay, sometimes I watch them swim over towards the Great South Bay, and they move all around. So thank you so much. So I'm going to move away from this. Let's see. Before I talk about seals, I just want to say a few words about the marine mammals of Long Island. We've got a tremendous variety of species here that are here. We've got cetaceans, whales, dolphins, and porpoises, some of whom, some individual species are here throughout the year. We also, of course, have our pinnipeds that are here for the most part for about 6 months out of the year, although we do have some places where they are spending time a bit longer. So in terms of the cetaceans, just to give you a sense, we've got, there are 90 different species in the world, and we've got 19 species here in the waters of New York. But I don't want to spend too much time talking about whales, dolphins, and porpoises. I'll save that for the summer. So let's talk about seals. Seals belong to a group of mammals called the Pinnipeds and translates from Latin as winged foot or more close or flipper foot. There are 33 different species in the world that exist today. And there are three groups. One group with just one species are the walrus. They have an Arctic distribution. So we're not going to find them here in the waters of New York in the wild. But you can find some in Brooklyn at the aquarium in Coney Island, I believe. There are 14 species of what we call the eared seals. And this includes sea lions and fur seals. They live exclusively in the Pacific Ocean. So we will not see them here in the wild. What we have here are members of what we call the true seals, or they're sometimes called the earless seals. There are 18 species of true seals in the world, and we have essentially 3 species here, but can have up to about 5. What's the difference? Well, I'm sorry, I'm going to jump ahead for a sec, go back. Pinnipeds as a group evolved about 25 to 27 million years ago, and their closest relatives, as you might be able to see from this chart, are right there, the bears. So today's bears and today's pinnipeds shared common ancestry 27 to 25 million years ago. So we talk about the eared seals and the earless seals, or the true seals and the eared seals. And let me give you an idea of what some of the differences might be. And just, as you can see here, this is a fur seal, and it's got these ear flaps, external ear flaps. This is a harbor seal, a Phocidae or an earless seal. And of course, it's not earless. All pinnipeds have ears. This opening here is the opening for the ear, but there are no external ear flaps. Hence, they're called earless for some strange reason. They're also sometimes called hair seals as well. True seals are the deepest divers of all the seals. In fact, this is a view of all different marine mammals, and we see here that the eared seals are shallow, even more shallower in depth, are walrus, and these are the true seal. Here is our local seal, the harbor seal, and its maximum depth is 600 meters. Gray seals, just about the same. So they are incredibly deep divers, sort of on par with some of the toothed whales. In fact, much of the early work on diving physiology was done looking at phocid seals. You may have seen this if you've been in a zoo or aquarium and seen walrus or sea lions or fur seals rotate their hind limbs and move on land on all four. Whereas true seals, like this harbor seal, can't do that. Their hind limbs don't rotate. They move on land on their bellies. They scooch like an inchworm. And this is a seal you will meet again. I've known her now since 2006. Her name is Hammerhead Wright, and you'll be able to figure out why in a moment when you see her again. So they move on land, or if they're on ice, they will dig their nails into the ice and pull. I'm sure some of you are wondering what about, really? Nails? Yes, indeed. So these are aquatic mammals, and as aquatic mammals, they have various adaptations for aquatic life. One of the things is that their limbs are flippers. But if you look at the underlying structure of their limbs, and this is the front flipper of a seal, what we find here are 5 digits, each with a nail, connected to wrist-like bones. And then here's the radius and ulna, connected to the humerus, connected to the scapula, just like yours, in terms of the underlying bone structure. If you look at their hind limbs, they've got 5 digits, each with a nail, connected to the ankle bones, connected to the tibia and fibula, connected to the femur, connected to the pelvis, the same pattern. So yes, they have claws, absolutely. They have nails. Another adaptation is their shape. They are torpedo shape, hydrodynamic shape. Another adaptation that they and other marine mammals have is that they are adapted to hold their breath. It's what we call apneustic breathing. And of course, they live in a medium that removes heat 25 times faster than air. So they're adapted to stay warm. How do they stay warm? One of the adaptations is having a blubber layer. Blubber is dense, complex adipose tissue that provides insulation. It also provides streamlining. It also provides stored calories. It also provides a source of water if necessary. So it's incredibly important. The other thing that we find in almost all marine mammals are countercurrent heat exchange systems that allow them to stay warm when they need to stay warm, but help them cool off when they need to cool off. Another adaptation for life in the water, and this kind of leads me to talk about questions that I get all the time, and that is how to tell male from female. Sometimes you can't. What the adaptation? If you're a male, the way you tell this is a male is that there is an opening for the penis, a penile opening. If you're a male, you are not going to swim around with your penis extruded or out. That's hydrodynamically problematic. So in pinnipeds, the penis is maintained inside and sent out when necessary. Obviously, so it's sort of posterior or towards the tail from the belly button. And in females, there's no penile opening, but what you do see is again, posterior to the umbilicus are 2 or 4 teats. So let me give you a little test. Can you tell what flavor this one is, male or female? I hope you can. This
Female.
is a young, huh? It's a female. And there is the umbilicus. And these are two teats right there. This is from a few days ago. And this one, it's a young one in the midst of, it's molting, as you can see here. Some of the fur they share once a year. This is a harbor seal. And there's another harbor seal back there. And this one's scratching her head. This is actually on the 26th of January, just a few days ago. Pinnipeds are aquatic mammals. They are marine mammals, but they are absolutely tied to the land or ice for one of several things. One is for birthing. They give birth on land or on ice. The other is for resting and to some extent thermoregulating. Excuse me for 1 second. Get rid of that. Sorry, computer glitch. All right. So what they do is one or several times a day, they will leave the water. They will crawl out onto land or onto ice or onto floating docks or onto vessels or even non-floating docks. The behavior is called hauling out, and they actually crawl out, or sometimes swim out onto these surfaces. And critically important in terms of resting, to some extent, social interactions, and also regulating body temperature, but obviously critically important for birthing. And in fact, some, not many, but some species, in some individuals will mate on land. Right. So these are the pinnipeds that we have here in the waters of Long Island, in our bays as well, and that obviously, or not obviously, in the oceans. We have the Atlantic harbor seal, our most common seal. We have the Atlantic gray seal, much less common, but still more so than the next ones. We have occasional harp seals, as well as hooded seals, ring seals, and bearded seals. These last four here, the harp seal, the hooded seal, the ring seal, and the bearded seal, these are all what we call Arctic seals. But we'll get back to that in a moment. All right, so my work takes place predominantly at Cupsogue Beach and in Moriches Bay, right just east of Moriches Inlet. I've been there since, oh, sorry, this is incorrect, but close enough. So I've been there about 430 times since 2006. And I've had nearly 26,000 seal encounters. Now, these are not 26,000 different seals, but there are a lot of seals over this time, with an average of about 60 per sighting. 99.5% of the seals at Cupsogue are harbor seals. 0.04, 0.04% are gray seals. And then we go down by an order of magnitude to harp seals and then one hooded seal. So again, predominantly what makes up most of our seals, 99% of our seals are harbor and gray seals. That other 1% come up as harp and hooded, at least at Cupsogue. So let me give you an idea of what it looks like over the course of each month, where early on there are relatively few seals, and I start monitoring them in November. The numbers increase through December. January is about the same. This January is very weird, so the numbers have average has gone down a bit. Increase more in February, hit a peak in March, and then drop off And then by early to mid-May, they're essentially gone. So that these are the sort of prime, these few months, December, January, February, March, for me are the best. So let me give you an idea. So this is a sandbar out at Cupsogue Beach. And this is just a small group of seals early last season, about 20 harbor seals. And here we come to the end of last season in May. And surprisingly, a lot more seals than I would expect. And that's partly last year because marinas were closed and there was much less disturbance, which I thought was a wonderful thing for the seals. But it's not always just a few. Sometimes there are many, right? So this is last December or December 2019, 125 seals spread out on that sandbar. A few weeks later, we're down to 78, and they're kind of packed in here. They're spread out more there. Early this year, actually January 6th, there were 171 seals hauled out on that sandbar.
Wow.
170 harbor seals, one gray seal. How can I tell? Well, I'm taking the images with a 600 millimeter lens, and what you saw here is just a series of 14 images that are stitched together. But I can zoom in to take a look, and this is that one gray seal. And of course, part of my work is actually to identify individual harbor seals. And you'll see later I have a catalog of about 220 individuals, and I can identify them based upon the patterns of markings on their bodies and on their heads. But more for that later. All right. So early last March, this was the highest number of seals I'd ever seen at a Cupsogue Beach. And this is, as you can see, 218. Prior to that, was the highest number was about 190 something back in 2011, in fact. But this was spectacular. And I think, again, this was partly due to the fact that there were few boats and very little disturbance, which is not the case this year at all. This is what you were looking at, the sandbar here. Back in 2004, they would haul out, up in the little further north and east, or a little east, but this is where they moved to in 2007, and they've been there since. Although this year, you can't see it, but this year they've been so heavily disturbed that they've rarely been on the sandbar. Some have been on rocks over here, and others have spent time on a much further northeastern end of the sandbar. You can't even see in this image. When I started, these rocks, or I'm sorry, I should say that the edge of the shore here, the cliffs, were right up against the rocks. We've had about 100 feet of erosion at least over the past 5 years. But I'm going back to starting there in 2000. My first time was there in 2006, actually 2004. People look at seals and say, oh, they're so cute and cuddly. And I will tell you that they're not always cute and cuddly. Sometimes, these are wild animals, they've got teeth. And this one is letting one of its neighbors know that something's wrong. And here is Hammerhead right again, and she is royally ticked off at another seal. She got that name. I gave her that name because of this mark behind her right ear that looks like a hammer. And when the space on the haul out, there's competition for space, and the adults take the prime spots, and the young ones try and move their way in, and they will be told in no uncertain terms or shown that it's not the right thing to do. What the seal will do is scratch in the air, scratch at itself, and then snarl and growl. And the other seal gets the message, right? So sometimes, not only are they not cute and cuddly, sometimes when you're looking at them and photographing at them, they just decide to pee while they're in range of the camera. And this is a male urinating, just in case you were wondering. So this is that same harbor seal you saw earlier. And harbor seals, males get up to around 330 pounds. Females are around 240 pounds. They're both somewhere between 6¼ feet for males and about 5.6 feet for females. They have a dog-like appearance, and their nostrils, when open, form this cartoon-shaped heart. As I said, they haul out on sandbars, sometimes on rocks, sometimes on docks, floating docks, vessels, but rarely do harbor seals haul out on the open ocean. I think that sort of becomes apparent from their name, or harbor seal. By the way, in Europe, they're called the common seal. They are found in groups on haul-out sites, but those groups are opportunistic groups, or so we think. And it's been argued that they travel alone, although I don't think there's any real data, legitimate data for that yet, because it's very difficult to follow them unless you put tags on them. And putting tags on groups or several seals together might be problematic. I can tell you that I have 4 seals now that have been back for their 17th year. And those 4 seals are always not only show up together at the same time, but they always haul out together. And to some extent, it could be some kind of interaction, but I think it's primarily the fact that of their age, and we'll try and get into that later, that they haul out together. How many are there? We have no clue. How many do we have on Long Island? We have no clue, although we're trying to figure that out. We know that the seals that are here, or these harbor seals, come from the Gulf of Maine, and there are about 76,000 at the last estimate. And of course, unfortunately, the last estimate is in 2012, and they're increasing at about 12%. Lifespan of about 25 to 30 years, and I'll leave out their mating system for now for another time. They do mate in the water. When they first get out of the water, they're really vigilant. They're very nervous. I shouldn't say nervous, wary. By the way, this is a male. And they keep their head up and their hind flippers up. Eventually, when there are enough of them and they don't feel threatened, seals will drop their heads. Oh, by the way, this is called the banana position, and go to sleep. When they sleep on land, they shut down both halves of their brains. They can sleep in the water. It's behavior called bottling, in which they're vertical and their nose is up in the air. And when they're bottling, they only shut down half their brain at a time. And that's the way whales, dolphins, porpoises, manatees sleep. And this is so that they don't drown. This behavior called bottling is kind of sad. The name arose because they look like floating bottles. And it's sad that we describe a behavior based upon garbage, isn't it? I hear all the time that people say that the seals eat all the fish. And I am here to tell you, no, they do not eat all the fish. Seals have been feeding sustainably for over 25 million years. They don't over-harvest. They don't overfish. They don't dump poisons and garbage into the water. The reason for reduced fish populations is not because of seals. It's because of us. Although it's much more convenient to blame seals than to blame ourselves, especially because they don't vote or pay taxes. But squarely on us. It's not to say that seals don't have an effect, but people, there's not a whole lot of data out there on seal diet. Harbor seals eat about 5 to 6% of their body weight per day. So it's each seal 10 to 18 pounds per day. But they do travel up to 30 kilometers out to sea to feed. And there's really no data about food feeding in New York at all, on harbor seals anyway. There's some data from Maine and data from elsewhere. And this is a paper published in 2019 looking at the effects of harbor seals. This is in the Netherlands in the Wadden Sea. And they do exhibit considerable pressure on fish that live near the bottom. But at the same time, it's shown in this paper that predation by seals or SAD may also alleviate competition between the remaining fish and allowing not just for not a reduction in numbers, but absolutely potential for increase in numbers. In many ways, prudent predators remove those prey that are of low reproductive value and allow the population of prey to flourish. Just to give you a sense, I mean, I've been there 430 times and I've seen them feed about 5 times. I'm there when they're supposed to be resting. They're feeding on octopus, and this is right after Hurricane Sandy. Here's one feeding on bunker. Here's one feeding on winter flounder. And the moment I posted this picture, I got the old, oh, they're eating all the fish story, right? Another seal we have here in New York is the gray seal. Halichoerus grypus is the scientific name, which essentially loosely translates as hook-nosed sea pig. Gray seals are massive. This is a male. Gray seals have a giant snout. The males are kind of dark and grayish. They get up to around 770 to 800 pounds. Females around 440 pounds. They are found together in haul-out sites. Their mating system is one in which males protect territory and access to females. We often find them with harbor seals, but not always. How many are there? We have estimate of about 420,000 in Canada. Maybe, we have no idea how many there are in New York. I'm sorry, in the US, no real good number. No idea in New York, I should say. When I started working with seals back in the 1990s, there were a couple of thousand over in Cape Cod at Muskegon and Monomoy Islands. Today, there are anywhere from 19 to 40,000 there. They mate and give birth from December through February. Pups feed on mother's milk for about 16 days. And then, I should have said this before, all of the true seals go through a post-weaning fast, and then they're ready to find their own food. So this is a female. Females have much lighter markings, and this is one that was at Cupsogue for about 3 years in a row, but I haven't seen her in a really long time. Also, very large snout. And just to give you a sense, they eat about 4 to 6% of their body weight each day, and they eat a tremendous variety of prey, benthic bottom and demersal near bottom, and schooling in the water column. They also take seabirds. They also eat harbor seals and harbor porpoise and other gray seals. A male will been shown to eat young pups that aren't his, I believe. Anyway, this is a gray seal at a Cupsogue just back in 2011, I think, and just there for 45 minutes, stretching, doing what I call gray seal yoga. Gray seals are big. It's a female with some kind of the herring-like fish in her mouth over near Plum Island. On the eastern end of Long Island Sound, we've got Plum Island and then Little Gull and Great Gull Islands. And we have, let me show you, this is Little Gull Island. This is part of when I was there back in 2018, there were close to 300 gray seals in 100 square yards. And this may be a developing, I've known about this, we've known about this since 2007. And although there have been a few births recorded, it's not been confirmed, but this may be the only gray seal colony south of New England. I'm going to skip right here to the Arctic seals. We have harp seals, hooded seals, ring seals. They're also called the ice-loving seals. They spend the summer in the high Arctic. They move to the edge of the ice in autumn and spend autumn, winter, and spring there. And for the past 40 plus years, some have been expanding their range southward in winter. Do we know why? No. Could it be something to do with food? Perhaps. But what do we know about what's happening to the edge of the ice in the Arctic? It is melting. The edge of the ice, those systems are changing more drastically than anywhere else on the planet. Could this shift in distribution in winter be somehow related to that? Maybe. We just can't test it. But it's a reminder that climate change is very real, very significant, and has significant effects on our ecosystems across the planet and right here. And then, of course, the seals that are up there and make their way down here as well. A reminder that we have to do whatever we can to slow it down. So these are hooded seals. They get their name because of this flap of tissue that a male can inflate, and he'll inflate this hood and also inflate his nasal septum to produce this, along with sound, and these are used to attract females. Females will make decisions. Hooded seal male will get up to 900 pounds, and a female 600. They are big. Now, this is their typical range in the summer, in the high Arctic to the subarctic, and their distribution in winter as far south as Tortuga, Puerto Rico, Daytona Beach. We have no clue why. It's just what's going on. They are big. Their pups are born in March on the edge of the ice. They weigh around 45 to 50 pounds at birth. They feed on mother's milk for 4 days. And then they double their weight and then go through a 2-month post-weaning fast. And then they're on their own, feeding. They've got a tremendous variety of food as well. And this is a one single juvenile female hooded seal that I've seen at Cupsogue. And I'm not entirely convinced that this is a female juvenile hooded seal. It's just the markings, just the dark head and dark flippers could be just an artifact. So I'm not sure. Harp seals. Harp seals feed on mother's milk for 12 days. Harp seals get their name as adults because there's markings on their back that look like a harp. For 12 days, they essentially have this white coat. They are incredibly abundant. They're born in various places. The harp seals that come down here are typically born in the Gulf of St. Lawrence. After that white coat, they end up in various stages. This is, I think, the ragged jacket stage, and then they move to a beater stage before they start to swim. And then they feed on mother's milk, as I said, for 12 days. And for those 12 days, this is a harp seal I photographed at Cupsogue a couple of years ago. They're incredibly numerous. They're about the same size as harbor seals, and lifespan about the same. They've been accused of the reason for the loss of Atlantic cod up in the um, coast of Canada, up in Grand Banks, but it's not at all. What about harp seals and their white coats? For my entire life now, I have data that you'll see in a moment of harp seal pups being killed for their skins. Total allowable take was recently up at about 400,000 to be taken. It's not listed anymore. This is a pup feeding on mom. Iconic view, a cute pup, and this is what happens. This is a sealer. He's got his bat, an object called a hackapick, in his hand. There's a nail at the end of it, and he is trying to hit that seal. And this is a later stage, not a white coat. Square in the head, the brain, to kill it, and then skin it. They're skinned, whether they're alive or not, which is barbaric. And the hunt continues, and this is what it looks like. Skins are taken, the animals are left. What were they taken for? For apparel, although not anymore, at least not legally, essentially. Brutal, barbaric. Single days take. There is no legal market left for harp seal skins. I shouldn't say that. There are some illegal markets. There is one guy in Copenhagen that has a standing order of at least 30,000 skins per year. And they're taken in just a short time period. So he can turn them into these egg chairs and then market them as sustainable because he argues they're sustainably harvested. Just to give you an idea, last year the hunt was stopped because of COVID, but 2,100 were still killed in Newfoundland. The year before, 32,000. Before that, close to 60,000. And as you can see, over the past 11 years, anywhere from 30,000 to 90,000 killed per year, which doesn't compare to the massive numbers earlier, but it is just obscene and entirely subsidized by the Canadian government. So harp seal pups have to deal with that, or they also, unfortunately, because they're on the edge of the ice, do have to contend with warming. And for instance, in 2010, 100% of the harp seal pups in the Gulf of St. Lawrence drowned. It was a year of significant North Atlantic oscillation, as well as significant, or in addition to anthropogenic global warming. The North Atlantic oscillation is the North Atlantic's version of El Nino. I'm running out of time. I'll give you 2 more seconds. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about what these seals face today. We don't have to worry about them being killed for their skins, although they were killed through the 1960s. They've been protected since 1972. We do have to be concerned about injuries. We can't figure out what caused this, but it's definitely not it's definitely human caused. This seal, you can see it being strangled. It's been back this year for its 10th year in a row, being strangled. And these are just pictures over the years. And that was last year. And here's that same seal coming back this year. Nothing that can be done. We can do better. This is plastic that's wrapped around its neck. We can do better by better control over what we do with our waste, and definitely not throwing out or letting plastic rope or fishing line or nets go, because they will cause entanglement. Seals do get harassed on occasion by vessels, by aircraft. And these idiots that got onto the sandbar and started skeet shooting. I'll give you a view of 54 harbor seals being chased into the water. It's a violation of the Marine Mammal Protection Act and the violation of New York state law. These bozos, not only did they do that, they anchored on the sandbar. They got out and started clamming. So I called the New York State DEC police, and I also called the NOAA Fisheries, and eventually DEC police came and nailed them for illegal clamming. And then they had evidence of harassment, potential anywhere from the fine for harassment is $10,000 per take, and 54 seals. That could be a quite hefty $540,000 fine. They were given a warning and told if it happened again that they would be charged, fined double. Minimum would be $10,000. We can do better. So let me, I didn't get a chance to talk more about my work, but that's okay. I wanted you to understand what we have at here. And finally to say, what do you do if you see a seal? Leave it alone. Stay at least 150 feet away and leave it alone. Whether you're on land or in the water, leave it alone. If it looks sick or injured, you can call the New York Marine Mammal Stranding Hotline, 631-369-9829, or call your local Bay Constable or your local police. Or if you're on the water and you see an injured, entangled seal or any other marine mammal, call the Coast Guard on channel 16. They will relay the information. I could go on and on. I think I will stop here. And I thank you for your time, and I'm here to answer questions.
Well,
Thank
thanks,
you so
Artie.
much.
Thank you so much, Artie, for that wonderful presentation. I've seen seals here myself locally, and I'm just so glad to learn some more about them. So thank you for sharing your time with us today. We have a couple of questions from the audience, starting with Paul Schuler. He said he lives near the bay or the beaches for 20 years, and he worked on the bay for 10 years in the late 50s, early 70s, but he never saw a seal. Are seals something that have always been here on the Bay Area, or can you explain the population fluctuations?
Sure, I can. Very, at best I can. Have they always been here? Yes. What happened through the 1950s and 60s was that for harbor seals and gray seals, there were bounties on their skins. And they were targeted, of course, for the fallacious reason of eating all the fish. So the populations were almost wiped out. Gray seals were entirely wiped out south of Canada. Harbor seals actually used to have pupping, mating, thriving populations here. They were decimated. When President Nixon signed the Marine Mammal Protection Act into law in 1972, it protects all marine mammals in US waters and around US vessels from being killed or harassed without a permit. So in 1972, seals are protected, and harbor seals are protected by New York state law as well. And that allowed a recovery, and the recovery continues. And of course, the recovery ultimately is, as we see up in Cape Cod, the recovery brings new kinds of issues about fisheries and how to handle the competition between pinnipeds and others. So that was, yes. So they are still on the increase.
Oh, terrific. So John Hall wondered if the increased presence of Manhattan affects the number of seals choosing to reside here.
I don't know.
It might. I mean, but there's other food here as well. They've been here longer than this increase in menhaden. I've seen them feed on menhaden, but most of my work in terms of populations is done when they should be sleeping on the sandbar. I'm sure, the increased availability of menhaden is responsible for some of this, but I don't think it's as clear as we might see in something like the nearshore humpback groups.
Thanks, Artie. So you may have covered this already, but what's the best time of year to observe seals on the beach? And can you tell us a little bit? I know you host a lot of seal walks out east. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So my walks are at Cupsogue Beach. This is my 17th year monitoring and probably 10th year leading walks there. Seals are, I guess, the best time of year. Well, they're only around essentially autumn, winter, and spring. I would say January, February, March would be your best time to increase chance of seeing them. Where to go to see them, it varies. There are lots of places, and what time of day where you might have a better chance really varies with the place and tides. Some haul out at low tide, some haul out at high tide at various places. So I would say that honestly the best way to do this would be go on a guided tour first, so that you know where they are, you know what to expect, and that you know that how to observe them without disturbing them. This year, at least at my site, I've been there 27 times, and when I expected seals to be hauled out, and they've been hauled out 5 times, anywhere from 4 to 171. But some dramatic disturbances going on. Some I could tell, some from people, some from vessels and construction going on, and some from dredging, but others I'm not sure. So go with a reputable tour guide. If you want to come with me, I've been at it longer than anyone else in New York State. But go to CRESLI.org and click on or look on our calendar, and you can see our seal dates. Most of the trips are full because we've been cut back by 60% because of COVID. And we have waiting lists. We also have some trips that are at 6 a.m. Where very few people have signed up. And it's around sunrise, and it's time to see the seals on the sandbar at sunrise. It's kind of cool.
Oh, that sounds really amazing. That really does sound amazing. I know you've donated. CRESLI has donated Pinniped passes at Save the Great South Bay events, and it's such a wonderful prize, unlimited seal walks. So.
Right. So we have that program where we ask people to make donations of $5 per adult and $3 for those under the age of 18 to help support us. We also have these options of purchasing a season pass. It's good for the season or for a year, if you will, where you can get a pass for unlimited seal walks for 2 people, or 1 for 4 people, or 1 for 6. And it's good.
That's terrific. So, hey, are there a couple more seal questions?
Mm-hmm.
Is bottling done by harbor seals or all pinnipeds?
All.
By all pinnipeds. Okay, great. And can the seals be tranquilized to remove plastic from its neck?
Yeah, not exactly.
Sounds like a good idea, but it's probably a little bit more logistically difficult.
Well, you can't, if the seal's on a sandbar or anywhere near shore and you tranquilize it, you hit it with a tranquilizing dart, the first thing it's going to do is go into the water, and then it's going to drown. So the seal has to be at a place where it's accessible And 600 yards or 200 yards out on the sandbar is not accessible. Until it's accessible, there's not much you can do, but they can be captured. But again, if you've got another 100 seals there, federal government's probably not going to let you, because you have to get permission, capture it and disturb lots of other seals, right? So the way to avoid that is not to let that stuff go, not to use it in the first place, but to be really careful about it so it doesn't end up in the water.
Right, right. There was another
But
question.
yeah, you can't tranquilize it
Mhm.
unless it's way, way far away from the shore.
Right, understood. How big of a threat are fishing nets to the seals?
I guess it would depend upon where they are and what kind of nets. They represent a problem for lots of marine mammals. I don't have any particular data on that other than to say that many of the seals that I've seen that have plastic around their necks, it often looks like it's been cut out of a fishing net, but I can't tell.
Gotcha. Here's a question from Cassie. Is the reason seals are seldom seen within the GSB distant from an inlet just due to lack of adequate prey sources, or also related to boat traffic, pollution, and so on?
Yeah, all of the above. I think, yeah, once we had that new inlet come in, there were seals. They showed up and stayed there pretty regularly. Seals are there. They're out in the bay, in the Great South Bay, but not as, there's no one looking carefully, but I get reports and I've seen them over in Blue Point, and I heard of them up in Oakdale and actually up from the bay and elsewhere. But why they're not there? All of the above.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Terrific. So, Artie, some of our audience members want to know, do you have a book? Have you written any books about seals?
No, I haven't. Although I see Matt Schlesinger there. But Matt
Matt.
and I and Rob are been talking about doing a writing up a paper, and I'm still with it, Matt. I'll be in touch. But book about it? No. Lectures, sure. Classes, sure.
Sure. How about a blog for Save the Great South Bay, Artie?
A blog for Save the Great South Bay about seals. I just send you to CRESLI and we have essentially a blog for every one of our seal walks. So.
Got it. And then a final question: are the seals on an ocean beach usually harbor seals? I'm not sure if that means Ocean Beach on Fire Island or like an ocean beach as in on the Atlantic Ocean.
Yeah. Generally not harbor seals, unless they haven't read the textbooks. Generally, I think you probably see more gray seal, especially from January through March, April, and sometimes harp seals, but not many harbor seals. No.
Gotcha.
That's why they much prefer harbors, right? Calm, protected areas. So it's rare to see them on the open beach, at least if they're well. Sometimes they're not well, but no.
Terrific. And Artie, hey, can you just confirm that phone number for us for the New York Marine Mammal Hotline?
Yeah, it's 631
Mhm.
369
Yep.
9829.
Okay, terrific. So if you see a seal, please stay at least 150 feet away. And if it looks like it's in any kind of distress state, simply call the New York Marine Mammal Hotline at 631-369-9829, or call your local Bay Constable, Police, or Coast Guard on Channel 16. Is that correct, Artie?
Yeah.
Terrific. Terrific. So is there a way to know if they are distressed or not? I've personally observed seals over at Cedar Beach on the Atlantic Ocean side, and they looked kind of like they were sunning themselves, but people were concerned about them because they were confused whether they had beached themselves or were just catching some sun.
Well, they swam out onto the shore to rest. That's what they do.
Mhm.
The way to see if it's distressed would be to, with binoculars, look closely at it and see if you see any large amounts of blood, if injuries to limbs, if it just kind of looks foaming, foaming in the mouth, looks funky. The other thing would also be that, well, that's primary. And again, it's not, it, most of the time you can't tell. What you
Mhm.
have to do is call the folks from the stranding teams and they will come check it out and they will determine whether there's something wrong or whether it needs to be assessed further. It's really hard to tell otherwise unless you have some expertise.
All right. So best just to leave it alone unless you observe something completely noticeable.
Yeah.
So that's terrific. Well, thank you, Artie, very much. We have just a few minutes left, and I would like to wrap up by saying that this presentation was recorded and will be made available on Save the Great South Bay's YouTube channel. We'll try and get it posted up a little bit later this afternoon. Save the Great South Bay protects and preserves the Great South Bay through its 3 core programs. The Creek Defender Program, whereby we work hyper-locally in communities to clean up along the 50 creeks and rivers leading into the bay. Through shellfish restoration, including the Great South Bay Oyster Project, which was launched in 2020, and through which we aim to restore oysters to the Great South Bay, and through habitat restoration, including our Bay Friendly Yards program, these are yards that serve a dual purpose of being both beautiful and environmentally friendly. We invite you to start where you stand and get involved. Like and follow us on our social media, including Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, to be informed of our upcoming educational programs, such as the speaker series like we just hosted with Artie. Our next event is on Saturday, February 13th, and will be a webinar with Frank Piccinini, our Director of Habitat Restoration, on creating butterfly gardens as part of our Bay Friendly Yard series. We thank you again for joining us today. A big thank you to Dr. Arthur Kopelman for sharing his time and knowledge with us today. And remember, it's up to each and every one of us to do our part to help save the Great South Bay. Thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your day, everybody. Bye-bye.